All right, let's jump right into the epic finale of this breakdown. For thousands of years, the source text argues the rigid, cold hierarchy of the modern Babel Tower told us that to live together, we had to surrender ourselves. It told us we are entirely defined by our job titles. But today, we're exploring what happens when that tower falls, dissolving not into rubble, but into thousands of glowing, free-floating capability nodes. In this final analysis of the source material, we are looking at how a Decentralized Social Protocol, or DSP, puts humanity before profession. We've reached the final destination of this framework's journey, the return to the self. Now, to really grasp this, we have to contrast how society could evolve. The text paints a stark picture of the old system, a world where you were handed a lifelong occupational tag. If you were a cashier, a programmer, or a doctor, that label just entirely consumed your identity. Your availability was essentially owned by your job, all fueled by this underlying panic just to survive. But under the DSP system, the framework shifts entirely toward modular capability pools. The foundational axiom here is existential equality. Basically, humanity comes before profession. You are a human first who just happens to hold a verified set of skills. We are no longer defined by our titles. Which brings us to part 1, settle the debt, reclaim the life. Let's talk about time, because this is where it gets really interesting. In the framework we're analyzing, public responsibility is absolutely no longer a lifelong sentence. You know that traditional 40-year, 9-to-5 grind? The text suggests replacing it completely with a lifetime responsibility ledger. Because your basic survival is unconditionally guaranteed by society, you instead commit to a finite, quantifiable quota of public service over your life cycle. It's a reciprocal commitment to the community that sustains you, completely replacing that endless daily grind. So how do the really tough jobs get done if no one is forced into them forever? Well, the text outlines a brilliant, dynamic time leverage model. It argues society doesn't need to force people into grueling jobs when it can just use time as the ultimate reward. The protocol proposes 4 tiers of tasks. Tier 4 tasks are just general rotation, low-barrier jobs offering a standard baseline return. But when you step up to Tier 2, like waste treatment, or Tier 1, like high-risk emergency rescue or surgery, the compensation isn't money. It's massive time leverage. We're talking a multiplier of 3.0 to 5.0 times. Think about that for a second. If the system is facing a severe shortage of disaster response personnel, the algorithm might push that leverage multiplier all the way up to 5.0x. That means stepping up for just 8 hours of intense, high-stakes emergency rescue could literally clear up to 40 hours of your total civic debt. You can trade the density and difficulty of your contribution for massive chunks of future freedom. And this leads to what the text considers its most fundamental guarantee. Whether you choose to front-load these high-leverage tasks in your 20s or you just pace them out over decades, the absolute rule is this. When your ledger is cleared, 100% of your remaining time belongs to you. No boss, no corporation, and no algorithm can ever ask for a single second more of your life. Your time is yours to write, to research, to travel, or simply to just rest. Okay, let's move to part 2, from useful to actualized. So, what happens to human ambition when survival is finally off the table? This source argues that traditional schooling has essentially been an assembly line built around knowing consequences, indoctrinating us to prove we could be useful to the machine so we wouldn't starve. But under this new framework, education transforms entirely. Because your survival is a baseline guarantee, learning shifts to knowing oneself. It becomes a lifelong, open-door environment driven entirely by genuine intellectual hunger and self-discovery. This is all made possible through what the text calls the modular capability architecture. Education is completely decoupled from employment. You don't have to chase expensive bureaucratic credentials. Instead, high-stakes skills are validated through rigorous peer certification. You don't learn surgery just to be a surgeon forever. You learn it through peer mentorship because you discovered a genuine talent for healing. And with lifelong reentry and zero-barrier transitions, you can seamlessly switch to carpentry, programming, or art whenever your soul demands a new direction. Now for part 3, the sanctuary of the inviolable sphere. All this newfound freedom sounds incredible, right? But to protect it from systemic overreach, the protocol establishes a powerful constitutional firewall known as the inviolable sphere. The source defines this as an absolute domain of individual autonomy. It means your personal time sovereignty, your beliefs, your lifestyle, and your cognitive privacy are sacred. They literally cannot be penetrated by any collective vote or central algorithm. It cannot optimize you for the greater good unless you explicitly invite it to. To make this work, the architecture strictly divides reality into two distinct domains. There's the coordinate sphere, which handles shared collective needs like managing roads, maintaining power grids, and calculating emergency medical gaps. But that collective management firmly stops at the doorstep of your mind, which is the inviolable sphere. It's a dual structure, proving that society exists to serve as an auxiliary tool for individual freedom, never the other way around. And to ensure this system never becomes a digital tyrant, it's hard-coded with strict safety baselines. For instance, it enforces hard-volume ceilings to prevent the good worker trap, meaning if you are highly efficient and take on a lot of tasks, the system will physically lock you out of accepting more once you hit a cap, enforcing a mandatory recovery interval. You also maintain an absolute right of refusal. A task notification is always an invitation, never a summons, and declining carries absolutely zero penalty to your survival. Moving on to Part 4, the restoration of mutual aid. This quote from the white paper captures the entire ethos perfectly. The ultimate metric of the protocol's success is ensuring that no individual's freedom, dignity, or time is ever sacrificed to the machinery of the collective. By removing the collar of money and the mask of permanent occupational titles, mutual aid returns to its pure form. You help a neighbor because of shared humanity and free will, not because you're terrified of starving or because a boss coerced you into it. When collaboration isn't coerced, it becomes an incredibly powerful force. But of course, humans will still have conflicts. The text details a decentralized dispute resolution cascade that completely bypasses state violence or punitive prisons. It's a frictionless, three-tier system. Tier 1 uses zero-knowledge algorithmic mediation for minor resource disputes. Tier 2 relies on dynamic, anonymous peer jury assemblies for complex conflicts. And Tier 3 is a cryptographic constitutional tribunal designed to veto any protocol updates that threaten that sacred inviolable sphere. Justice in this model becomes entirely about restorative equilibrium. Which brings us to our final section today, the end of the protocol. The crucial, beautiful paradox of this entire utopian architecture is the concept of the disappearing infrastructure. The ultimate success of the decentralized social protocol is actually its own disappearance. It is designed to become like the air we breathe. It operates silently in the background, matching capability gaps with willing nodes, ensuring no one starves, and ensuring no one is enslaved. It completely abolishes the degrading concept of human resources. In this framework, society exists because of the person, but society does not need to permanently consume the person. It supports you unconditionally and then, respectfully, gets completely out of your way. So as we wrap up this explainer, we arrive at a framework where we stop being occupational tags. We win back our time sovereignty. Return your time. Return to yourself. And ask yourself this one final, breathtaking question posed by the source material. What will you create when the world no longer tells you what to be? Thank you for exploring this fascinating architectural blueprint with me today. Keep asking questions and keep exploring.